Hello, everyone. I'm your narrator from Grave Hush, and I'm here to help you unwind tonight. I know many of you use these stories to fall asleep. So before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now get cozy, take a deep breath, let your body sink into the stillness. It's time to relax and let the story carry you into sleep. Our first story tonight. Let's begin. Messages kept appearing on my daughter's window. She thinks they are from her imaginary friend. "Daddy, come look," Millie yelled from her balcony above me. "What is it, sweetheart?" I asked, wiping the sweaty forehead. "Come quick." It was only 9 in the morning, yet I have worked since 7 on painting the fence. I needed a break anyway. I went up to her room and I saw what she was pointing at. The window was covered in foggy condensation, and as if somebody wrote it with their finger, there was a single word on it. "Help." My friend wrote it. "Which friend?" "Sam. He comes to my room sometimes at night." I raised an eyebrow. I know kids can make up imaginary friends sometimes. Hell, even I did, as Mom told me once. The thing is, when it happens with your kid, it's a whole different story. I chose my next words very carefully. "Why did Sam write this, Millie?" "I don't know. He seems sad." "How come?" "He is always frowning. He doesn't speak." I figured the divorce would be hard on Millie. I was lucky enough to get custody and take her away from her narcissistic mother, who mentally abused her in a way she was too young to understand. The final straw was when Millie caught her cheating. She tried gaslighting my own daughter against me, to both distance her from myself and to try and get Millie on her side before inevitable divorce. I was so proud of Millie. She told me that Mom had a friend visiting several times a week while I was away at work, and that something seemed wrong to her. God bless her, for a 9-year-old, she was really smart. She understood to a certain level why we had to get divorced, but that did not change the fact that she still missed her mommy. Afterwards, I did the only logical thing, even though I knew it would not be easy for Millie. We moved 3 states away to a small town in the Midwest. I hoped a fresh start would be good for both of us, and I did not think twice when I saw the listing for a 2-story house being sold at a relatively cheap price. Located on the edge of the city with beautiful nature around it, it was perfect. My boss was very understanding when I asked to work remotely, so I figured even if something doesn't fit us here, we could simply move again. I knew this was a lot to process for her. A lot of changes happened, and I tried giving her as much attention as possible, but between both company and housework, it was not easy. So perhaps all of this was just her way to cope. Maybe she made up a friend to express her conflicting feelings to someone. Finding friends in a new area was not easy. Maybe she was coping with big life changes, or maybe this was just a ploy to get more attention from the daddy. I looked over the window again. The fact that message literally said help only supported my theory. "All right, sweetie, you know what? How about I finish my work later and we can go get ice cream now?" "Yay!" She burst with joy for a moment, face turning to frown a moment after. "I wish Sam could go with us. We can buy you some toys and you can show them to Sam later." I played along only for a bit. I knew I should acknowledge her feelings but not go overboard with it. Pretty soon Sam might become real if I did that. We spent a day at the mall. I got her some ice cream as promised, some dolls and clothing for them, and she even begged me for an expensive dollhouse. I gave in. Today was her day. Anything that could make her mind off. It worked. She did not mention Sam for the rest of the day, nor did I. I made her some macaroni and cheese in the evening and we watched Finding Nemo. I told her it was my favorite cartoon and she loved it. I took her to my room, kissed her goodbye, and went myself to bed. Next morning, I got back to painting the fence. Around the same time as yesterday, Millie called me. I was not about to dismiss her feelings yet, so I played along again. I got to her room, and sure enough, there were the words on the window again. Under the shed. Unlike the one from yesterday, this message gave me chills. I could associate the word help with Millie's feelings, but this seemed too random for her. "Why do you think Sam wrote that, sweetie?" I asked carefully. "He is a sad daddy. He needs you to help him." I turned to her, trying to not give away the glimpse of panic in my eyes. "What does Sam look like?" "Oh, I can't see him in the dark exactly. He just sits in the corner of the room swaying." "Swaying? How do you know he is named Sam?" "Yes, with hands around his legs. That is all that he speaks all the time. Sam, Sam, Sam." A puzzle started coming together in my head. I didn't believe in ghosts too much, but small towns, a cheap house that sold pretty much instantly. Is Sam real? Is this house actually haunted? I tried laughing casually and telling Millie I would help Sam after we got some breakfast. I could not eat, though. I watched Millie. She was not scared. Unlike me. If Sam was indeed real and Millie was not afraid of him, perhaps he is just a benign ghost? Do those exist? I went over to my first-door neighbor's house after, to an older gentleman named Mark who came over to introduce himself the first day I came here. I thought he would give me some answers. We sat. He poured us some fine whiskey. I tried refusing as it was still morning. He persuaded me, saying he doesn't have that many people left to share drinks with. I accepted. "Mark, I have to ask you a weird question. Why was the house I bought so damn cheap?" "I was wondering when you were going to ask me that," he said, putting his glass away, tone turning serious. "Well, before you came over a few months ago, there was a murder in the house." Blood drained from my face, and he must have noticed it. "Yes, I know. Not a thing you want to hear." "What happened?" "A father suffering from schizophrenia, which we did not know until then. He killed his wife, presumably his son, and himself. Mother's body was found in the house, but his and son's bodies were never found." Mark lost himself in thoughts for a moment and gulped. "It was declared as murder-suicide. Blood trails led behind the house towards the woods, disappearing there. I was the one to call the police, actually. I heard him yelling over and over, 'Kill them all, I must kill them all.' One of the people that saw him that day said that he snapped, thinking his family had been replaced by imposters." "I see." I downed my drink, handing over glass to Mark for a refill. "Don't think about it too much, kid. Paranoia and schizophrenia are a dangerous combination, but it's all in the past now. Focus on the future. It's a wonderful house. And those things happen, unfortunately." "Yes, they do," I said absently. I could not tell him that I thought the house was haunted. I would look crazy. I downed the second drink, thanked him, and went back to the house. I knew what I had to do now. I waited for Millie to fall asleep. As soon as I put her to bed, I took the shovel and went straight for the shed. It was behind the house at the far edge of the backyard, tall trees towering over it, looking much bigger and dense at night. The same forest where Father took the kid, presumably. I only checked it out the first day I came here. I did not have time nor strength to deal with it. A large metal door creaked, and I was hit with the stale smell of mold and rust. Boxes and tools were scattered all over the place, and the light of the flashlight hit something that drew my attention. The shed did not have a floor. It was basically put right on the ground, plain dirt below my feet. In the corner, I could see the edge of something metal. I moved the boxes to reach it, coughing from the dust, and shined the light on it. It seemed like the hatch door under the shed. The police must have missed it a few months back. I debated if I should open it. I thought about it for a moment. I remembered a documentary I caught on a TV once. It was either sudden, violent death or unfinished business that prevented dead people from ascending, keeping their ghosts on Earth. The only logical explanation was that little Sam's ghost is still at unrest because he was violently murdered by his father. By finding his body, I could help him. A proper burial would release him, I guess, and he will not visit Millie at night anymore. I grabbed the hatch and I pulled. A cold gust of air blew right through me, sending shivers down my spine, almost knocking me down. I thought I even heard a rough voice for a moment. I didn't make out the words, however. I pointed the flashlight down below, and I could immediately realize it was one of those end-of-the-world bunkers. It made sense. Of course, a paranoid schizophrenic would have atomic shelter in his backyard. I could see 2 bunk beds, shelves filled with canned food, and right there in the middle remains of 2 bodies, and a shotgun between them. I didn't need to see anything else. I ran back to the house and called the police immediately. 2 patrol cars appeared soon, and I led them to the shelter. One of the officers, a chubby man named Robert, knew the family. Tears appeared at the corner of his eyes when he saw decaying bodies, and by the clothing only he said he could confirm it was them. He did not need to wait for forensics. I left the officers to finish the work, feeling relief and fear at the same time. I did help Sam. That, however, meant Sam was real, at least at one point. Mark was on the street in front of the house with a couple of neighbors that came to check why there were patrol lights in the middle of night. I pulled him to the side and explained. This time I did not care about sounding crazy, so I told him everything. Night has been too crazy already. But all of that meant little Sam was finally put to rest. Mark squinted his eyes at me. "What do you mean, Sam?" "It was what the ghost kept repeating," Millie said. "We figured it was his name. Sam is the older brother. He is still alive, working in New York City. He was there when all of this happened. You actually bought a house from him through his agent, I think." "Huh." I tried making sense of it, but I gave up. I was already mentally exhausted. I realized I haven't checked on Millie since I put her to sleep. Lights and noise might have woken her up. I waved goodnight to Mark. I got to Millie's room, and as suspected, she was already awake. "Hi, baby, sorry about—" "Daddy, Sam was speaking." She interrupted me. "He came to say goodbye. Did he?" I am glad he did. I still tried acting as if all of this was normal, which was not by far. Him coming to say goodbye raised hair on my skin. "He left you a message," Millie said cheerfully, pointing at the window. I moved the curtains, and surely enough, there was a message. Not the one I wanted or expected to see. "Kill them all. I can finally kill them all." Story 1 ends here. Now, let's begin story 2. My girlfriend never existed, and I still miss her. I know how it sounds. I know I sound crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not. About 2 years ago, I was at a bar with my friends. I don't tend to go out and drink. I don't like clubs or raves or big events with loud music. I like people and socializing, but generally in a more relaxed environment like a house party or something. However, I was convinced to go out by one of my close friend Andrew. He was cheated on by his girlfriend about a week prior, and he lived by the philosophy of to get over someone you must get under someone new. I never understood that mentality, but since he was there for my last breakup, I thought I'd be there for his. I spent most of the night sipping on cheap whiskey I overpaid for in the back, watching my friend talk to this girl he's been trying to impress with his dance moves that seemed to imitate the dance of a bird looking for a mate. Strangely enough, it seemed to be working. I wasn't really looking to find a girl myself. After my last relationship ended, I kinda swore of dating. Not really because it ended poorly. We are still friends vaguely, just too much to deal with emotionally at this point in my life. I felt like I needed to be by myself for a while longer to figure out who I am and what I truly want. Until that night when what I truly wanted accidentally bumped into me, spilling her drink all over me. I looked up and I saw her. She was panicking and apologizing about spilling her gin and tonic all over me, but I was just trying to catch my breath after she stole it with her eyes. I mean, this girl was gorgeous. Not supermodel statues or anything, but just something about her. She felt like the girl next door you'd have a crush on in elementary school when you first started to discover that girls don't have cooties, and if they did, it was worth getting. I remember this night vividly like it happened yesterday. It was all so surreal. After the general apologies that were shared, her for making my white button-up with rose designs all over it soaked, and me for... Well, I don't know what I apologized for. I just felt like I should say sorry for breathing the same air as her. She finally asked me my name. Desmond. Hey Desmond, my name's Mary. We proceeded to talk all night. She was wonderful. She was a psychology major on her final year of her bachelor course, planning on getting her PhD and minoring in philosophy. She loved hiking, dogs, smoking weed, kids' cartoons. Her favorite thing to do, she said, was taking walks at night. She said it was just the perfect time to do so. Everyone's asleep, so it feels like the world is yours and just yours. She was funny in a witty pun way. We talked so long my friend's dance moves finally got the girl he's been talking to all night. He came up to tell me he was leaving and he's give me a ride home if I wanted, but I told him no thanks, I'll just walk home, I'm enjoying my time. Mary and I went on a walk that night until the sun came up. I swear I was already in love. We shared phone numbers and set up a coffee date in a couple days. Months went by and everything was going perfectly. Since I worked weekends and she went to school weekdays, the only time we could hang out was at nights. We watched movies at the theater, went on walks, cooked dinner at my place. We never went over to her apartment. She said she lived in one of those 4-bedroom places with 4 random people where everyone shares a common room and kitchen but pays for their individual room as rent. At nights, they would throw parties that were filled with drunk college kids, or they would be up late in the common room studying with each other, so it was always my place we'd go to. She always had issues with her roommates, so I wasn't ever gonna push to go over there, because frankly, based on her stories, I wouldn't like them much either. After about a year of dating, little over a year ago, she randomly knocked on my door. She was supposed to be studying for her midterms with her roommates, so wasn't expecting her, but I gladly let her in. She was crying something fierce. I quickly sat her down, asked her what happened while making her favorite caramel tea we get at a local tea shop. She explained to me that her and her roommates got into a massive fight and she had to get out of there. She talked about she hated living with them, but she couldn't afford to move out. I, without skipping a beat, asked her to move with me. My lease was ending and I was already looking at this 2-bedroom outside of town that isn't too far away from her college and my work. We talked about it all night until she finally agreed with me that she would. Her biggest fear was she didn't have much money to help with the lease, which wasn't an issue to me seeing as I was planning on moving there with or without her. After she moved in, the first 3 months was amazing. Everything went smoothly. She was happy, I was happy. We were learning to live with each other and grow with each other. I knew I was gonna marry her. Until things started getting weird. In the last 9 months, looking back in hindsight, there were dozens of instances that just felt off or out of nowhere. For example, she has met my parents, which my mom loved her, but I never met hers. When I asked her about it, she started to tear up and explain to me that they died when she was in middle school. She was on a field trip in school, and when she got back, her parents weren't there to pick her up. After waiting a while, she said a cop came up to her and told her that her parents died in a car wreck. Apparently, on their way to pick her up, a semi-T-boned them running a red and died on impact. She lived with her grandma until she was 17, and sadly her grandma got cancer and passed away right before her 18th birthday. I felt it to be strange that after a year and a half she is just now telling me, but I just assumed it was a touchy subject and left it there. Another strange thing I noticed is she didn't really have friends nor was interested in making them. I never heard any stories about them other than a classmate saying something funny or dumb in class. I tried to set up a double date with Andrew and Christy, the girl he met at the bar, but she usually had an excuse of being too tired from school or not the right time. It always felt like the only person she hung out with was me. In the last 2 months, she started to become distant. It wouldn't be anything major, she'd just talk less, focus less on conversation. She didn't want to go on walks that much, she stayed late at school to study. She missed dinners more frequently, and most of the time I wouldn't see her until I woke up in the morning and she was in bed next to me. I was planning on talking to her about this haze she was in, but I was praying that it was something harmless like her finals just eating up her time or stress of graduating afterwards and seeking employment. Our relationship was pretty solid, so I don't think it was her cheating on me or breaking up with me. However, I started to get worried the more and more she came late, or how much she slept in the day. She slowly stopped eating more than some fruits and snacks. I was worried she was getting sick, so I begged her to see a doctor to get a checkup. After a couple weeks of her saying she was fine but clearly wasn't, she gave in and told me to make an appointment. That appointment was set for last week, August 1st. It was set for 9:30 a.m., which doesn't seem early, but for 2 night owls, it was a rough wake-up. I got up to the alarm and went to roll over to wake her up, and she wasn't there. I figured she just didn't sleep well and woke up early, so I got up, got dressed, and headed into the living room. No sign of her. I started to call out her name to be met with the silence of an empty apartment. I walked outside to see if she was out there or took our car somewhere, and our car was still there. I started to freak a little. I went to call her, but when I went to my phone, her name wasn't in my contacts. It confused me because how could I accidentally delete a contact? I quickly dialed her number manually, only to be met with, "This line has been disconnected or out of service." I started to tear up. At this point, I assumed she ran away or something. It was the only logical excuse I had, but why go through the effort of deleting my contact in my phone just to disconnect hers? Why would she just leave? Nothing in our relationship was going badly, and I thought after all we'd been through together, I at the very minimum deserved a note or a conversation. Hell, an email. Just something. My brain went full force, so I called Andrew. He picked up, still hungover from the night before. I could tell because he still was slightly slurring his speech. "What's up, bro? Why you calling so early? You know I was at a party last night." "Bro, she left. Disconnected her phone, deleted her contact in my phone. She left, man. She just left." "Who left?" "Mary. Who else?" "Calm down, man. First off, who's Mary?" "Are you fucking with me right now? This is not the time to mess with me." "Dead-ass dude, I don't know who Mary is. I'm not messing with you." My heart sank on that sentence. I was so confused, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles a second, and none of it was making sense. "What do you mean you don't know Mary?" "She's my girlfriend, the one I live with. The girl at the bar. We've been dating for 2 years." "Dude, you haven't dated anyone since Jessica. Are you okay? Did you take any drugs last night? Do I need to go over there?" I just hung up the phone. I just couldn't in that moment. I needed to go look for her. The first place that came to mind was the college. I sped over there as fast as I could and ran into the lobby of the main building. "Hi, can I help you with anything?" Yeah, I said in the calmest demeanor I could muster. "I'm looking for my girlfriend. I was seeing if she had any classes today or something." "What class would she be in and what's her name?" "Mary Fulbright, and I think the earliest class would be psychology with Professor Jackson." She started to clack on her keyboard for what felt like eternity. "Well, psychology class won't start until noon and Professor Jackson won't be here until 10. But I don't see any Mary Fulbrights on the attendance register." "What do you mean?" "She's on her master's right now. She's been going to this college for 5 years now. How could she not be on the registration?" "I don't know, sir, but I don't see her here. You can ask Professor Jackson when he arrives if you want to go to his room." It's room 312 in Building C. I sprinted out there and found the building and the room. I sat there trying to slow my shaking down. I could barely breathe. A mixture of fear and confusion was raging through my body to the point where it was the only thing I could notice. I barely caught Professor Jackson as he walked by me. I rushed to him. "Hey, I'm so sorry to bother you. The receptionist lady told me you'd be here soon. I was asking about my girlfriend, wondering if you'd know anyone she takes your first class." "Mary Fulbright." "Who?" He responds, caught off guard and confused. "Mary, she is getting her master's. You've been her teacher for 2 years." "I'm sorry, I don't know a Mary. Do you have a picture of her?" I grabbed my phone and opened Gallery. I started looking through the images and all of her pictures were gone. Any selfie she sent that I screenshotted just wasn't there. Then I noticed something strange. We went to a national park last weekend. I requested the day off. We had a stranger take a picture of us in front of a statue at the hub. Her idea. I have that picture, but she wasn't in it. I was just standing there smiling by myself. I almost dropped my phone. At this point, I was breaking. I looked up at the professor and apologized and excused myself before I was about to fall apart. I sprinted outside, my breath out of control. Nothing felt real. I scrolled through my entire phone and nothing. Any pictures we were in together, it was just me. Some I was even doing a weird hand placement like I was relaxing my arm on an invisible person. Nothing of just her. I called my mom in a panic, just trying to get something to ground me. She's met her dozens of times, she has to know. It rang, and rang, and rang, and finally, "Hey, sweetie, what's up? You okay?" "Hey, Mom, do you know Mary Fulbright?" "No, am I supposed to?" "Oh, okay, thanks anyways. I'll talk to you later. Love you." I quickly hung up the phone. I spent the last week looking for any evidence of her existing. It felt like my mind was fractured and nothing was real. Maybe Andrew was made up. Maybe my job was made up. Maybe this is like Shutter Island and I'm in a mental hospital. I felt like I should be in one. Hell, I was about to check myself in if it wasn't for me going back home and looking at a picture. All the pictures of her weren't there anymore, like they never were there in the first place. Our lease only had my signature. All her schoolwork and clothes aren't on the desk or closet anymore. I was defeated until I looked at my desk after sitting on the couch shell, shocked like I just lived through D-Day. Trying to figure out why my memory of her was so vivid, so detailed, until I saw a picture. She wasn't in it, but it was a picture of me on the couch. She loved that picture of me. The thing was, she was the one who took it. If she didn't take it, who did? It was the only evidence I had to show that she was real, that I wasn't crazy. I've been researching ever since. People's disappearances, people's stories, seeing if there's anyone with something like mine. That's why I'm writing this post. I found a couple of stories online, no connection to Mary, but the people were saying the same thing. Their significant other disappearing out of the blue, their fear of going insane. Some lost their minds, others moved on. I found a small group still looking, still believing. I have a ticket to Peru. That's where one of them, someone who is going through something similar. His name is Tom, is at. He said that there's a lead of someone who might know what's going on. A shaman or something. I don't know, I don't care. I will find you, Mary. That's why I'm posting this on Reddit. Mary, if you are reading this by chance, I know you exist. I'm looking for you. I'll find you, I swear. I'm not crazy. I will find you. Story 2 ends here now. We drift into story 3. She said she could bring my baby back. All I had to do was feed what's in the basement. When our little boy came into this world, the last thing my husband and I were thinking about was that in just over 6 months he would be dead. Our little man had breathing problems when he was born. They put him straight into the incubator for 48 hours. That was hard to watch. The terror you feel as a new parent is unmatched in those moments of staring your child's death in the face. You have had this little alien growing inside you for so long you are its sole life force, and now you stare at it wondering if it was all for nothing. We finally brought him home from the hospital, pink and ready to give us hell for the next 18 years. Probably longer. I so wished for longer. Around 6 months later, there was a night where I just felt off. Like something was wrong in our home's air, mother's intuition, I suppose. I wish I had followed my gut, but I was just so tired. I went to sleep that night and was not waking for anything or anyone. Other parents will know how horrible and real sleep deprivation is. There is a reason that it's used as an effective torture method. You will do anything, spill all the world's secrets just for a little bit of sleep. We had finally put our boy in another room around a week before this particular night, primarily because my husband snores like an elephant. It was so disruptive to the point that the dog began sleeping in the living room. It was the first night I slept completely through in weeks. When I woke up that morning, I rolled over and felt rejuvenated in my mind. But my body felt tense. I felt that off feeling again and checked my phone. It was well past the time my son would normally wake. I checked the monitor and my stomach dropped into an endless pit. The feeling when you're on a roller coaster about to slam back into earth. He was lying face down, not moving. My heart rate rose like it was pumping on pure jet fuel. I don't exactly remember what happened next, just snippets, fractures in time. I remember looking at the door to his room and hovering over the handle. I remember standing barefoot on his rug that I had slept on many nights before. I then found myself sitting on the rocking chair in the corner of his room, milk streaming out of me as I put his blue lips up to my warm skin. I rocked and swayed and whispered, "Wake up, baby, come on now, Bubba, wake up, please." But he never did. At this point, I must have screamed because my husband ran in. Thinking back, I feel sorry for him having to be exposed to this scene, and also angry at him, all at the same time. The last thing I remember was the paramedics trying to gently pry him from my hands. I put in a fight. My nails dug deep into his sleep sack, and I snarled like some rabid animal. The next few weeks were also a bit of a blur. We found out the cause, SADS, sudden infant death syndrome. He rolled himself over in the middle of the night, and I was too sleep-deprived to notice him suffocating in the bedsheet. I didn't know they made child-sized coffins. That was a shock. Well, I guess I did, but I never had thought about it. It was so small, so delicate. They lowered it into the hole, and that was the end of my life as I knew it. There was no redeeming, no coming to terms, no coming out of this hole. No reason to anymore. My husband and I were not strong enough to begin with. And the fights after this were so intense that it led to his insisting that I go to a support group for other mothers who had gone through something similar. After a while of him insisting, he demanded with a divorce threat attached. I finally agreed. I knew I needed some help. I wasn't like one of these people in denial. I knew what happened and that it was my fault. The support group was filled mostly with other grieving mothers whose kids had succumbed to cancer. Another lady had her son pass in a car crash, his body so mangled that they wouldn't even let her see him. Mine seemed like the most peaceful, which made me feel sick that others had it worse, even though my insides were rotting. I didn't say much. I sat there listening mostly. But out of respect, I did share my name and briefly what happened, mentioning what I remembered anyway, the reason he was in there in the first place, the blue lips covered in breast milk, the paramedics. The others looked at me like mine wasn't raw enough, horrific enough. I felt it too. Except for one older lady, she looked genuinely gutted for me. It felt nice. Once it finished and everyone started to disperse, I made my way to a little table with assorted sandwiches and cheap coffee. I stared at it for a long time. Probably not a good idea for them to have strawberry jam seeping out of the open bread like a mini crime scene. A hand grabbed onto my shoulder and I spun around in fright. And that's when I met her, Marla. She would have been in her late 40s, maybe early 50s. You could tell just by looking at her that she has had a hard life. She has seen things behind those eyes. Real haunting pain. She smiled at me like she had a deep understanding of what I was going through, and I started crying immediately. It was bizarre. I didn't understand it, and she pulled me in for a hug like an old friend I haven't seen in years. We stayed like that for far too long, but I didn't want to let go. There was something about her, some sort of energy radiating from inside that made everything feel like it was going to be okay. We went for a walk together after, along the street and into the park. We sat on a bench and watched some other kids playing in the playground. After sitting there in silence for a while, she said, "I know what happened, you know." I looked at her, a little taken aback. "Sorry? I know that you're beating yourself up over this, but it's not your fault. I know that, and I think you do too." I sat back and looked forward, lip quivering, and let her continue. "I know your husband is to blame for this tragedy. I know that's harsh, but I'm just being honest." I stood up and went to walk off, wiping away a tear, but then she said something that stopped me in my tracks. "There is a way for your little boy to come back, you know." I slowly turned around, ready to go off on this lady. She stood and put her hands up in mock surrender. I think she could see the fire behind my eyes. She quickly added, "Please believe me, there are ways. We have done it before, we have done it, and successfully too. Please let me help you." I put my head in my hands and continued my breakdown. "Why are you doing this to me? You're sick," I screamed at her. She rushed up and grabbed me tight. I was shocked, confused, everything all at once. I grabbed her and squeezed aggressively. "Why are you doing this to me? Who are you?" She hugged me tightly like a wall slowly crushing me, but it somehow calmed me. She whispered into my ear, "I know you don't know me, but it will only work if you trust me. Do you trust me? You need to be 100% on board." I pulled away slowly and looked her up and down. She was smartly dressed, like she had just come from the local country club, not some cauldron-stirring witch. And weirdly, I did trust her. I really did think she was telling the truth as she knew it anyway. We walked some distance together while she explained the process to me. She would need something of my boy's, his favorite cuddly, a piece of clothing, anything that would still have a bit of him left on it. She would take this for a few days, then at the next women's group meeting she would give this back to me, and I was to put it into the basement and lock the door until she gave me the next step. I did everything she asked. Once she returned the stuffed lamb he slept with, it went into the basement. I didn't tell my husband. What would I say? I didn't tell anyone about this. I didn't question it myself. In my mind, it was harmless. If it worked by some miracle, I would get my baby boy back. And if this lady was crazy, which I suspected almost certainly had to be the case, then I wasn't losing anything, was I? A few nights passed and nothing happened, and I thought I had been duped. I felt like an idiot, until I heard a noise coming from the basement. I was sleeping this night and awoke to a chill in the air. It was as if my husband, now sleeping permanently in the guest bedroom, had blasted the AC just to torture me some more. I got up to turn it off and heard an odd noise. It was coming from the basement. The noise was like a newborn crying into a pillow, muffled and faint. With my phone light out, I slowly made my way past the aircon panel, which was turned off, then headed toward the basement door. I was shaking and trying my best to steady my breathing. The floorboard squeaked below me and the crying stopped. I gently put my ear up to the cold door and went to open it when my husband grabbed my shoulder. "Shit!" I yelled at him as I jumped around, grabbing my chest. He looked at me like I was a runaway mental patient. For the first time, I saw true worry behind his eyes. He wrapped his arms around his body, hugging himself warm. "What the hell have you got the aircon on for?" "I didn't put it on, I thought you did to piss me off," I joked. But he did not see it as funny. He shook his head and walked off, huffing and puffing. "You seriously need help, woman. Honestly, I don't know what to do anymore." I went to walk after him to plead my case and argue as always, but I felt like my feet were stuck. I let him go. Instead, I called Marla and whispered, letting her know what was happening, hoping she could make some light of this. I could feel her smiling on the other end of the line, pure happiness in each word. "Oh, this is just such great news, hun. Now you feed it." The words were there but wouldn't come out, only fragments. It? Sorry, I misspoke. You feed him your baby boy. Oh, this is just so wonderful. Hold up, what do you mean? What is down there? I asked, looking at the door. Just follow my rules. Do not under any circumstances open the door until I tell you to. You understand that, right? Lock it and hide the key so your husband doesn't go in there. This is very important. I had forgotten about this crucial part. Yes, of course, I lied. Good. Now you need to listen to that noise. Your milk will begin coming back in shortly. It's nature. Do not fight it. Pump and put it in a Ziploc bag. Slide it under the door 4 to 5 times a day. Let him guide you with his noises. Let me know when there are any more occurrences. What do you mean? What will happen? How will he get into the bag? There were far too many questions and unknowns. He will know what to do, don't worry. As for the occurrences, you will know when it happens. I am so happy for you, hun. Get some sleep. This is going to be an exhausting but beautiful journey ahead. The line went dead. She was right. The next day I woke with a sharp pain in my breast, like someone was stabbing me slowly with a butcher's knife. I looked down, and my shirt was drenched from the milk seeping out. My breasts were rock hard. During the night, my body must have responded to the faint cries. It was incredibly painful to touch. It happened far quicker than last time. My husband never questioned anything during the next week. I was pumping in the bathroom, door locked and with the shower on, wanting to scream at the pain I was experiencing. I don't know what my husband thought during this time, but he began staying even later at the office. We needed the money. And eventually he began sleeping a few nights at his parents' house. He said it was closer to the office, which it was, but I could see what was happening. I didn't care. This just gave me more of a chance to express in comfort. I was well aware of how crazy this all sounded, but the crying, it sounded just like his perfect little cry. It was his cry. Even my body knew it. My husband packed up and left around a month later. I didn't blame him. By this point, I had gone a little nuts. I remodeled the baby's room and got it back looking like a newborn was about to occupy it. I bought new clothes and replaced some of the toys we gave away. I gave in and told him about what I was doing. There was no hiding it anymore. He packed his bag so fast that I don't think he really packed anything he needed. He was moving back full-time with his parents while he sorted out what he wanted to do. How he looked at me was so horrible, like I was disgusting. His eyes told me that he didn't know me anymore. I was doing this for him as well as myself. He was going to get our baby back too. Why wouldn't he support me through this? It was for us to be whole again. He said that he couldn't hear the cries, but he just wasn't listening hard enough. They were there, but he just blanked them out because he was determined to move on. At one point, I even began doubting it all. I thought I was going crazy, but one day my doubts were crushed, and from then on I knew I was sane. I went to put some fresh milk under the door and found a single tooth. A little milk tooth. It was his, so small and sweet. I put it into its own little box. I was so excited I couldn't sleep, so I sat by the door all night just listening, sometimes singing lullabies. The stretching noises, the sweet cries and coos. I just wish I could open the door and go down there, cuddle him, and let it all be okay. The last call I had with Marla was just before the neighbor's kid went missing. She let me know that it was almost time. My baby was almost ready to come back to us, to this crazy world. There was just one more thing that needed to happen, a life for a life. He needed a body to come back into, a healthy vessel to occupy. I felt sick. I wanted to hang up. I wanted to kill her for putting me through all of this without telling me this final, horrific step first. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I didn't. I asked for more specifics. Maybe there was a workaround. My thoughts went dark, like, how long does a body last embalmed in a coffin? I could dig him up. She said it would only work with a live child. You wouldn't want your kid to look like they had been in a coffin for months, bugs eating holes in the skin now, would you? She said. I almost spewed at the image in my mind. It made sense, but I also know what it feels like to lose your child. Surely I couldn't do that to another family, to another mother. I declined, and then she said something that chilled me to my core. Once the process has begun, there is no stopping it. You must finish, or what you create will be something you will regret for the rest of your life. I hung the phone up. I made my way back to my room, unsure about my future with this experiment. Then I started to hear scratching sounds coming from outside the basement door. He must have grown his little fingernails, which struck me as odd. It should not happen at this age. Not one's big enough to scratch the door like a manic cat. I locked myself in my room, but could still hear the faint scratching noises all night. Then the crying began, and so did the milk. She was right, there was no stopping this. And today, coming home from the grocery store where I bought some more supplies, diapers and the like, I saw the police consoling and comforting the neighbors. My stomach dropped. Seeing her face transported me back to the morning I found my boy face first. I was about to vomit on my front steps and ran into the house, hoping to God they didn't see me. I slowly walked over to the basement door and sat against it. I could hear faint breathing, and then the cries started right on cue. I started pumping, mechanical and numb, milk hissing into the bottle. I sat there with no expression. It's where I am currently sitting now, still pumping, still waiting, still writing my story, still holding out to hold my boy again. The smell of roasting meat wafted from the kitchen, and Marla came into the doorway. "Don't worry about them," she said. "I will help them get their boy back in good time. For now, just keep feeding him. You are doing amazing." Something thumped against the door behind me. Not a knock, more like a little skull testing the wood. Little fingers pushed through the gap near the floor. They were cold, slick, nails black with dirt. "Soon," Marla murmured, stirring her pot. "Your beautiful boy will be free. This one's growing faster than the last." Marla had started to hum a nursery rhyme, and he began humming it back from behind the door. I had not heard that one before. It's like it was something meant just for us. I smiled and leaned my head against the door, grabbing his fingers and whispering, "See you soon, my beautiful baby boy." The fingers curled tighter around mine and didn't let go. Story 3 ends here. Now, listen closely to Story 4. Inherited those fine skills and always drew the most detailed little pictures you've ever seen. He wanted to be a tattoo artist when he grew up. I promised to buy him a tattoo gun and practice on me when he was 16. I care very little for the quality of my tattoos. Auntie Amber was also a fantastic nail and makeup artist as well. I always had her do my nails. "Want a touch-up?" she asked, looking down at my chipped black nail polish. "Yes, please. I can't pay you today, though." "You never have to pay me." I let her paint my nails. As I watched her focus on the fine details of nail painting, I thought about how Logan made the same face when he concentrated. I knew because I helped him study for his tests. When my nails were painted and dried, I decided to walk round to the park to mess around on my skateboard. It was very late, but I liked it better when I was sure there were no little kids around. I didn't expect Logan to still be there, as it had been about an hour since I last saw him. In my imagination, he was at this girl's house, or he was walking back from hers after having a sweet moment together at the park. Although I did think we might run into each other and was a bit disappointed when we didn't. Walking around my area at night is always depressing, but that night felt a little extra miserable. This wasn't the place to be a kid. I stopped on top of the bridge over the train tracks of the station and peered over the graffiti-covered railings. Imagine, if you will, trying to think about the future and all its possibilities when all that you can see around you is empty little fields of plain, overgrown grass, crumbling tower blocks, and the dirty Thames River. Although I must say the view off of our local pier into the Thames used to be quite nice until they built an Amazon warehouse on the other side. That's the view now. Big, stupid, ugly, modern warehouse, like the one I work in. I walked over to the other side of the bridge, then I crossed the road and entered the field that the park sat in the middle of, vaguely lit by street lamps. The ramps are the only actual piece of equipment that's still usable. People's pit bulls have torn the rubber off of the swing and the zip line, and the big slide is apparently the designated park toilet. Despite there being trees at the edge of the field, they still piss in the slide, wrong uns. The skate ramps are the only part of the park that's lit up at night by the same poorly maintained street lamps dotted around my area. They give a light that's shit for deterring crime, but great for taking aesthetic pictures. If you can't tell, I'm delaying having to tell the next part via over-describing my area to you. I should have known something was wrong from the feeling in the air alone. It felt still and empty. Usually the park is full of sound at any time. It's usually birds and bugs making their noises, especially the crickets in the high grass, all summer. But it was silent that night. I put my skateboard down on the floor and began skating back and forth. I went up the quarter pipe, then back down to the little ramp and up the big one at the other end. I did it over and over, as I had done for about a decade by that point. The only sound in my ears was the rumbling of my wheels on the smooth ramp and the not-so-smooth concrete. I would have had earphones in, but I didn't have any data on my phone. Taking a break, I stopped on the little ramp for a second and took a seat on the rail. As I looked around, I spotted a new piece of graffiti on the quarter pipe. Someone had drawn a green spindly plant with white little berries on it. I had seen several similar pieces of graffiti around recently. It's always cool when a new artist tags your area. As I was staring at the details, I saw movement from the corner of my eye, a shadow flitting past. At first, I thought it was a fox. I looked in the direction it came from in hopes of seeing one. I stared out into the dark, empty field looking for a flash of red fur. Then I heard a bang from under the big ramp, which made me jump. My head whipped in the direction of the noise. I got up and walked toward the sound. I thought I heard some whispers as I got closer. I attributed them to maybe some crackheads or homeless people. Or homeless crackheads. I wasn't too worried either way, as I know a lot of the crackheads, homeless people, and homeless crackheads in my area. I'm related to one of them. I saw another shadow flit off into the dark. It went too fast for me to make out a shape. My mind changed to thinking of animals again. Perhaps there was a small family of foxes feasting on an abandoned kebab under the ramp or something. I'm stalling again, but these ramps are known for their big gaps underneath. As a teenager, I smoked under them all the time. I know people who lost their virginities under them and homeless people who camp in them regularly. The space under them really isn't that big, but it's plenty if you need a place to camp out. I've hidden from the rain in them with girls I fancied and refused to leave the park for, even though it was pissing down. And when I was much smaller, I played pretend games under them with my mates. We liked pretending it was a castle, and the ramp above was the battlements. It's impressive what a space can be to a child. Never did I imagine that the ramp would become a mausoleum for my little cousin and his girlfriend. As the underside of the big ramp came into view, I saw their feet, small and upturned. A pair of trainers and a pair of flats next to each other. My eyes scanned the scene in silent, abject horror as I took in the sight of their little bodies. They laid side by side, pale and lifeless, their hands almost touching, but not quite. Upon seeing my cousin laying there, I screamed. Scream isn't quite the right word. It was a guttural noise that I had no idea I was capable of making. Story 4 ends here, and now we enter the fog of Story 5. My boss bought a taxidermied raccoon. Now he's a violent psychopath. I've been working at Frisky's, my boss Jeff's place, for about 5 years now. Frisky's has always been a bit grody. When they say a place is a dive, Frisky's is the low benchmark that other bars are diving towards. Recently, though, the crowd's gotten much rowdier, ruder, and a whole lot more obnoxious. The let's pretend we're dangerous vibe that Frisky's used to cultivate has given way to a genuine, oh shit, this place is actually dangerous vibe. Jeff's solution? He bought a taxidermied raccoon and put it on the high ledge over the liquor shelf. "What the hell is that?" I said. "That, Jesse, is our new friend Roberto." Jeff was smiling. I'd been under the impression that he didn't know how to smile. "And Roberto's a raccoon." "You've got a very keen eye," he said. "I see that Roberto the raccoon is dead." Another very astute observation. "Okay," I said, "maybe I'm being unclear about what my concern here is. Jeff, why did you put that dead raccoon up there?" Jeff squinted his eyes and stared at Roberto the raccoon. I could see the gears turning. "It's going to help with the shitbird screwing up my bar." "How, though?" He took a beat to think about that. Then he said, "I don't know how exactly, but it will. It told me it would." "The stuffed raccoon told you?" "Jesus Christ!" He was almost yelling. His face turned red and he waved his hands like a schizophrenic vagrant at a ghost. "Quit being so nosy, Jess. Now it's my goddamn bar and it's my goddamn raccoon and I say it goes up there. No more questions. You got it?" He picked up a bottle of Jack Daniels and threw it on the ground. An explosion of whiskey and glass shards launched into the air. I made the sound I imagine frightened pigs make. Jeff stared at me, his respiration heavy and ragged as a pneumonic old man's. I was afraid to move. "Roberto stays," he said, his face quivering red, and then he stormed out into the parking lot. A few nights later, we had a pretty good crowd of assholes. A biker gang, or a gang of men who were trying to represent themselves as a biker gang, meaning they likely did not have the bona fides of homemade Aryan Nations tattoos and access to a functioning crystal methamphetamine laboratory. They were doing that thing bullies do where they accidentally bump their porky shoulders into people. They loudly yelled while looking around to make sure people could hear them loudly yelling. Their leader was a guy who I would have guessed worked at H&R Block, if not for his leather vest stitched with associational patches. H&R biker kept coming around the bar and trying to serve himself. "You can't come back here," I said. "And you guys need to chill or I'm going to ask you to leave." "Oh, yeah?" H&R biker said. He lifted his shirt, displaying the pistol tucked between his overhanging belly and his dungarees. I tightened my lips and said nothing. "I do not like guns in the bar. Guns and booze are a bad, bad mix. Their combined presence anticipates events like ATF raids, asset forfeiture, and condemnation proceedings." I walked away. A while later, Jeff came out of the office. I guess he noticed something was wrong. He came up to me and placed his hand on my shoulder, which was unusual because Jeff was not a physically affectionate or even physically comfortable person. "Jess, what's wrong? You seem troubled." I shook my head, avoiding eye contact while I wiped down the bar top. "Nothing. Everything's fine." I wasn't very convincing, as you might guess. I can lie as well as the next gal, but not when I'm scared. One of the regulars, a bawdy old skis with missing teeth and untrimmed facial hair developing into an accidental handlebar mustache, whose name was Hank, leaned over the bar and told Jeff, "One of those Hell's Angel wannabes has a piece." "A gun?" "Yep," Hank said, nodding toward the guy who'd flashed me his pistol. "The one who looks like the fat feller from Seinfeld. He's packing." "I see," Jeff said. "Let me think about what I should do. Que le grand raton laveur nous guide." Me and Hank traded glances. Both of us were probably confused by Jeff speaking what sounded like French, especially because he was a Freedom Fries guy. We watched him re-enter his office. "What was that about?" I said. Hank shrugged and sipped his beer before offering this philosophical gem. The French, a very strange race. They fight with their feet and fuck with their face." Jeff came almost right back out of the office, then around the counter and behind me. He climbed up on the back bar. I saw something shining silver in his hand. It was a needle. Jeff stuck the needle into Roberto the raccoon's chest and said, "Grand raton laveur, donne la sagesse de ton sang." Then he stuck out his tongue and pushed the needle through the tip. Me and Hank looked at each other again, this time clear evidence of alarm on both of our faces, both of us completely flabbergasted. Jeff got down from the back bar. He removed the needle from his tongue and tucked it under the wristband of his watch. Blood dribbled down over his lips. It ran over his chin like a Halloween vampire mask. He approached H&R Biker and his henchman at the table where they were sitting. H&R Biker looked up at Jeff. "What the hell do you want?" The speed and power of Jeff's violence stunned me. He shot his rigid palm from his side like a pneumatic nail gun rocketing out a nail and smashed H&R Biker's nose flat into his face. The way the blood exploded from the guy's nose reminded me of stepping on a fast food ketchup packet. Before I could really understand what was happening, Jeff had pulled the man's gun from his waistband, cocked it, and then pressed the barrel against his forehead. Several of the other bikers reached for their waistbands, their backs, or their vests. Jeff discharged a round in the middle of the table before bringing it back to H&R Biker's skull. "The first one of you to touch your guns gets your buddy plugged. You are desecrating the temple of Roberto. I am his apprentice. I warn thee who would anger the great one who eats trash." The bikers looked at one another's faces. I think each Confederate was gauging whether their fellows were planning on making a move. But then Jeff started murmuring crazy whispers with the sound harshly clipped off at the end. The quiet babble of lunatics before they explode. I think they were afraid to even move. They must have been, I was, and Jeff was on my side. Jeff squeezed the pistol grip so tight that his sun-tanned fingers blanched white all the way through. After a minute, one of the bikers said, "We'll go. Just let us leave, and we'll get up and walk out. We're sorry about the trouble." A minor chorus of yeas and okays were half-heartedly mumbled, indicating a majority vote. "You can't desecrate his temple. Those who trespass before him will be piled upon the refuse of his dumpster and scattered by his nursery's great feast." Jeff waved the gun and screamed, "Do you understand?" "We understand, sir, we understand. I promise we understand," their spokesman said. Jeff seemed to be considering it. Finally, he dropped the gun down by his side. "Then go, and may le grand raton forgive you and bless your dreams with his omens." The bikers left. Jeff went into his office and sat down. I checked on him before I closed up for the night. He was asleep in his chair. Over the next few weeks, my boss's behavior changed, becoming more bizarre by the day. Once, when it was my shift to open the bar, I walked in and found him on his knees facing Roberto the raccoon, bowing his head and speaking rapid-fire French. I thought of Abraham smashing his father's idols. The patriarch wouldn't have gone in for Jeff's heresies, that's for sure. But whatever Jeff was doing was working. The instigative patrons shaped up or shipped out, and the bar became a reasonably safe place again, while still maintaining a modestly rowdy reputation. But as Jeff reached each new, bizarre toll on his lunatic's turnpike, Frisky's customer base shrunk smaller and smaller until barely even our regulars showed. And that was before things even really got nuts. My phone woke me up. It was my day off and I had wanted to sleep late, but I was also expecting a birthday present from my aunt, and I had to keep an ear out for the delivery driver's call. I looked at my phone. It told me both that it was 4 in the morning and that Jeff was calling. I answered, "Yeah? Jess, I have something very important to show you. Can I pick you up?" I sat up in bed. "Jeff, well, do you know what time it is? I need to show you. It's very important that I show you. I'm waiting outside. Please, It sounded like he was about to cry. I need your help, Jess." Yeah, okay, just give me a minute. Let me get dressed." I watched the lightless green-black blur of the forest go by my window as Jeff drove us further out into the sticks. We'd been driving for an hour. The homesteads changed until they were all up long dirt drives and hidden behind trees, and soon after that there were no houses at all. I saw animals' eyes glowing yellow and red in the darkness of the woods, daylight still more than an hour away. Jeff hadn't spoken the entire drive, so I'd tried to sleep until we got there, wherever there was. But I kept hearing him whisper to himself, those whispers with words harshly clipped at their ends. He said several times, "Sacrifiez-la en holocauste sur un tas d'ordures." I didn't know what the whole phrase meant, but it's never a good sign when someone suffering a nervous breakdown whispers the word Holocaust. I couldn't imagine its meaning was very different in French. "Thanks for coming out here with me, Jess. I just have something important to show you." Jeff nodded his head while he spoke, like he was a churchgoer affirming the truth of a testimony. "Yeah, no problem. I've kinda been..." I stopped myself. Jeff turned his head to look at me while he drove. "What? What is it? You can tell me." I turned to face him too. I couldn't believe it. I thought I might cry. "I've been really worried about you, like..." I nervously laughed through my clogged nose, wiping the corner of my eye. "Like really, really worried about you." I looked into his eyes, waiting. I jumped in my seat when he started laughing, and it was weird, forced laughter, and it got louder and louder until it was wild, unhinged, laughter that had no connection to humor. He suddenly just clamped down on it, the sound of someone closing a door on a loud, laugh-tracked sitcom. "That's crazy, Jess. That's really a crazy thing to say. I'm doing so good. I'm doing the best I've ever been." He whipped the steering wheel suddenly to the right. I screamed. He didn't even respond to me screaming. "Jeff, where are we going? You're starting to scare me." "Ah, well, we're here now. You'll see right now, you'll see." He pulled off on a dirt road. After a minute, he stopped the car in a clearing inside a dense circle of pines. Here we are. It took me a minute to understand what the car's headlights were illuminating. Maybe because they were familiar physical phenomena and objects, but in places where I'd never seen them before. And like sliding the last puzzle piece into place, it became clear. There was a shovel in a big dirt hole, a tarp and bungee cords right beside the freshly dug. It was a grave. "Jeff!" My speech was interrupted by blunt force trauma. I felt a distant pain and saw a bright flash of light. I'd been hit so hard that he'd knocked me out with the first punch. I came to, and it seemed like only seconds later, Jeff was dragging me by my legs toward the unmarked grave. I screamed and I kicked at his hands. He grabbed me by my ponytail and whipped me forward. He tore hair from my scalp. He was so much stronger than he looked. It caught me unaware and he seized on my shock. I felt his work boots slam into my ribs, heard the crunching sound and shooting pain when they broke. Jess, don't make this harder than it has to be. Roberto has chosen you. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. My broken ribs meant I was incapacitated. Every breath was agony. I cried even though it hurt something awful to let myself cry, even if I kept quiet and didn't move while I did. I watched him walk back to his still idling car and open the trunk before taking something out of it. He walked back over next to me and I saw he was holding the taxidermied raccoon. He placed it right next to my head, then bent down close and whispered to me, "This is a great honor for you." I heard him sniffling. "It's a shame he chose you, but it's also a great honor. You're going to go to Paradis des Ratons Laveurs, you'll see. You'll get an entire new life, resurrected as one of Roberto's very own. And you'll have all the trash you could ever eat, Jess. There'll be no more pain. There'll just be overflowing dumpsters and a new ringed-tailed family to keep you in their gaze. You'll see. You'll—" "Jeff!" I heard someone yell. I recognized that voice. How did I know that voice? "Let her go," the voice said, and I heard the sound of a shotgun cocked. I managed to turn my head. It was Hank. He was flanked on all sides by almost a half-dozen coonhounds, a treeing walker coonhound, a few redbones, 2 blue-tick coonhounds too. Jeff hissed, "L'ennemi juré infernal." "Jessica," Hank said, "can you drive that car?" I croaked, hardly able to speak. "I don't think I can." Hank was quiet for a short moment. "Well," he then said, "you're going to have to." Hank whistled. It was loud and sharp, an expert's taxi hail. "Louis," he said, looking at one of the blue-tick hounds, who responded by stiffening his body from his snout to the tip of his tail. "Amène-la à la voiture." Louis the blue-tick coonhound came and dipped his neck low next to me. He nudged my arms with his nose. I understood. I wrapped my arms around his neck. It was unbearable pain, but I understood the only other option was to stay here, and I didn't want to see what happened next. Hank kept his shotgun trained on Jeff as I completed the excruciating and tree-sap-slow process of getting in the driver's seat of Jeff's car. "L'entouré!" Hank shouted, and the other 5 coonhounds surrounded Jeff and the taxidermied raccoon. Then Hank backed up to the car, keeping the shotgun barrel level with Jeff's head. He knocked on the window and I rolled it down. "Hank, I don't think I can drive," I said. "You ain't got a choice now, kid, 'cause I got business to take care of and you can't be here to see it." I looked over at Jeff. "What are you going to do with him?" He looked at me, sucked his teeth, and looked over his shoulder. He used his hand to signal directions as he spoke. "You drive out the way you came in. When you come to the main road, go left. It's gonna take you longer, but keep on that road all the way until you see signs for the parkway. Take the parkway south. You'll be back in town inside of an hour. I'll come find you. What are you going to do, Hank? Goodbye, Jessica. Go now. Go." Maneuvering the car with my broken ribs hurt worse than anything I'd ever felt. But I managed to make it all the way home without crying. When I got to my parking lot, though, I broke down. And even though the pain was incredible, or maybe because it was, I bawled my eyes out sitting in the car. Story 5 ends here now. Settle in for Story 6. You please, stop watching my show. I can't take it anymore. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's all from me. Have a wonderful day, and I do hope you will join me again tomorrow. And cut. As another show drew to a close, my smile faltered and the lights dimmed. I created a show that I now loathe. It's all falling apart around me, crumbling into an unrecognizable pile of slop that I'm embarrassed to put my name to. Waking up the nation with Charles was my pride and joy, but it's all gone terribly wrong. How is it still spiraling into something I don't recognize anymore? This is a last-ditch Hail Mary to try and get it all to stop. Please stop watching and maybe they'll take me off air and all of this can stop. You may think I'm exaggerating, but I can do no more than spill my heart out and hope someone listens. I wish I was in the same blissful ignorance I felt when the first scene began to come away. It was a short while ago when I was hosting a segment with a well-known local chef. We like to do Bring Verity in our shows, so tried to mix up the segments every morning with baking, gardening, actors, that sort of thing. We were talking about our recently baked scones, which I had ruined by adding salt instead of sugar into the mixture, which got a chuckle from our producers and seemed to go down well with audience when I suddenly felt wrong. The chef's voice began to muffle and my eyesight blurred to a point that everything around me seemed like low-quality oil painting created by a 3-year-old, smudges of color crudely mashed together to try and imitate objects. I felt beads of sweat drop down my head as they settled in the creases of my strained and forced smile. Then darkness, quiet, nothingness. It was a feeling of momentary peace I had not felt in quite some time, but when I came round, I did not see the studio or anywhere I recognized straight off the bat. A world that was upside down with trees that looked as though they were raining from the sky. And the floor was an endless road of stars as far as I could make out, a pain shooting through my chest, then darkness once more. When I came around, a bright light shone into my eyes that at first blinded me, but it was quickly taken away by a paramedic holding a small torch. "Hey there, Charles," had us worried for a second there. I wasn't too sure if it was the paramedic who said it or a voice in my head, but I jolted upright and tried to get to my feet before stumbling again and deciding to sit crossed legs on the floor with my head in my hands. Through glazed and blurry eyes, I could see a door way on stage right. Inside stood a figure dressed all in a brownish suit. Looked like he had stumbled in from the set next door shooting some zombie drama for the BBC. I pointed a finger out and shouted, "Who the fuck is that? Get him off my set right now, get him off now!" The figure did not move, but just tilted its head, slightly as if it were confused. He must have hit his head on the way down, seems concussed. I think it'd be wise to keep him in overnight. I don't remember much else from that night. The time I actually spent in hospital flew by. I was in a private room with a view of the gardens behind the hospital. A moonlit pond rippled gently as the breeze passed through served as a peaceful view for my stay. My stay, however, was less tranquil. I remained in a state of confusion for most of it, hearing laughter and the mundane, mild chatter of voices that felt like it was in the room with me. Either there was a staff room nearby or the morphine was doing its job. I closed my eyes tightly only to open them and be blinded by big bright lights. Studio lights. "Ladies and gentlemen, you all know him from the hit breakfast show. Please welcome our guest star, Charles." A voice came from behind me. I realized that this was my set with my audience, but they were booing me. Why, what had I done? I tried to move to wave or do something, but I realized I was still in the hospital bed, strapped down tightly by chains. The boos became an unrelenting tsunami, at which point I realized I couldn't speak. I was not gagged or incapacitated, but it was as though someone had stolen my voice completely. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, ladies and gentlemen," slight awkward chuckle, "let's settle down. So, Charles..." I could do little more than move my eyes to see my desk I would sit at, and a figure sat behind it. It wore a tattered old dark brown suit jacket that looked like it had been crudely attempted to be fixed. But I could see little more than a sleeve and part of his chest. How does it feel to be the one who destroyed a life just to rule it all? I couldn't respond. I was confused by his words. They seemed disjointed and spoken by three voices overlapped crudely in post. "What? Cat got your tongue?" This elicited a maniacal laugh from the audience that started and stopped with pinpoint accuracy, sounding like someone was just playing a recording. "Come on, Charles, this is your own doing after all. You were lighthouse in a sea of darkness and you had to turn out the lights." The voice began to distort and become more twisted as it carried on rambling. I can't lie, I was frightened. Feel completely vulnerable to whatever the hell was going on felt like hell. A buzzer blared off in the corner behind me, sounding like a car horn that had been imitated by a child. "Aha, you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost time for the end of the show." A chorus of awe rattled and screeched through my brain as it droned on. I shut my eyes tightly, only try and drown out the lights and sounds of the studio, which luckily seemed to work. Peace and quiet once more accompanied the darkness, which was such a comfort after the harsh lights and sounds of the studio. The same voice echoed so delicately compared to the voice that interrogated me moments ago. It almost seemed recognizable. See what I saw, feel what I felt. Once more I was back in that place. The world around me was upside down and the pain ripped through my chest, but something was different this time. I could vaguely see a border of broken glass around my vision with one of my hands on a steering wheel. Was I in a car? Before I had any more time to think, I snapped back into reality as I found myself lying not in a bed, but the cold, hard floor beside the bed. I struggled to my feet and luckily felt a bit better than I had done. I sat on the side of the bed to rack my brains over whatever the hell was going on inside my mind. I felt sore and everything seemed to ache in a way I could swear my bones were rattling. My stomach twisted into a knot whilst my chest tightened. I don't know what was going on, but I didn't feel myself. I rang the nurse's bell to tell them my experiences, which I was palmed off until discharge, telling me that it was just some generalized anxiety. They ran a few tests to make sure, but all of them came back indicating I was in good health, so they discharged me that afternoon. The director, Arla, suggested I should take the rest of the week off, which I was reluctant to do, but she reassured me she had learnt a lot from me and would be happy to step in for a bit. I don't trust many people, but Arla I thought the world of. She had seen me at my best and worst. Even when we both started here, it was like two childhood friends rekindling a friendship. So I agreed to let her take the reins while I was off. I wanted to watch her first show in the morning, so made sure I didn't lie in so I could catch it. I had my slippers on with my feet up, a cup of tea in one hand, and a plate of biscuits on the table ready to watch. The show started and she had the same grace and effortless humor that seemed to slip away from me over the years, but watching her reminded me so much of myself. I'd not normally admit this, let alone to her face, but I was bloody proud of her. The smile, the chemistry was all there. It was evident that she learnt it all from a pro, yet somehow made it better with an air of elegance and beauty of which I was not as gifted in those departments. She had begun a segment with a local gardener who had brought in the UK's largest marrow. I don't think the audience were too interested, yet Arla tried her best to joke and laugh with the gardener, who took their marrow growing a touch too serious. But out of the corner of the screen I saw that figure. The extra from the set next door stood there again, staring. I thought it must have been a fan of the show, so I called the secondary producer, Clive, to send him packing. I dialed Clive up directly and was met with a, "What, Charles? We are literally live as we speak. This better be urgent." "Yes, it is. That bastard from the other day is standing off stage, right? You can see him. On screens, tell him to bugger off." Silence. Sigh. "Okay, Charles, you're still concussed, I think, buddy. Go have a lie down for a minute." No, Clive, he right there. He's got his back to us now. Charles, seriously, chill out and go lie down, mate. You really shouldn't be thinking about work right now, so I'll pretend this phone call didn't happen." The phone tone rung in my ear as I watched the figure just stand there. I couldn't look at it anymore, so I switched channel. Grand designs, perfect. Watching someone try and renovate a 19th century house would numb myself long enough to... Wait, there he was again? In the upstairs window, looking down on the presenters as they went from talking about the house and what type of scaffolding they were going to put up to them chattering about the death and misery this house saw. I switched again, hoping for a different outcome. An old repeat of the Great British Bake Off? Perfect. But this time something was odd from the start. This time all the presenters and contestants had their backs to the cameras as they switched between the two angles. There was no dialogue, just static with occasional screeches and horns going off trying but failing to break through the static. One contestant, however, was recognizable, partially at least. I could now see he wore a suit, the same dirty dark brown one that man wore the other night. With every camera switch, he would change positions with other contestants to get closer and closer to the camera till he was front and center. Back turned to the camera still as it began to fizzle before turning black. Static would fizzle on and off the screen, turning the room around me into a sickly parade of dancing whites, blues, and purples interfering with the dark screen. See what I saw, feel what I felt, in white text flashed up on the screen intertwined with the static. At first it almost looked like a trick of the eye, but after a couple of minutes the text faded and gave way to a bird's eye of a road. It pierced through the thick trees, leaving a distinctive black mark down the middle streaked with a vibrant white. A car came into view, winding, darting all over the road, whilst the camera came closer and closer to the roof of the vehicle till it blurred into a first-person point of view of the driver. A lorry would come barreling around the corner and the car would slam on the horn, smash through the barricade with an ear-splitting screech and soar through the air for a brief moment until it came plummeting to the ground with a thunderous smash. On impact, the windscreen would shatter into my TV screen, bursting it open, plunging the room into darkness, whilst I felt tiny flecks of glass rush past my skin and slicing into me as it whizzed past. I held my hands up to my face and felt a warm liquid begin to pool over my fingers. I stood up quick as I could to grab a flannel or something, but as I stood up I felt a sharp pain rush through my chest again and slumped back down. I was frozen in panic as I believed I was about to bleed out there, and then as I felt it begin to soak into my shirt and drip down my chest, this could be it. From the TV came a blue glow, subtle and faint to begin with, but as it grew brighter, the sight became unbearable, stinging my eyes as it became more harsh. A horrendous noise followed that made my teeth rattle, like someone playing a drum under the water as fast as they possibly could. I clasped my ears over my ears and shouted in anguish, fear, terror, pure and raw dread, and... Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's all from me. Have a wonderful day, and you will join me again tomorrow. Arla directed to the screen with a warm and genuine smile. Everything was as it was before. The TV was fixed. Light gently trickled in through the blinds, leaving behind a warm glow of sunshine that glistened off the glass fittings of the house. My hands scrambled all over my face, finding no evidence of blood or glass that had become lodged, whilst my shirt and chest also remained unstained. My head fell into my hands, brushing them back to feel through my greasy hair, sighing in disbelief and bewilderment. That afternoon I threw out all my painkillers the hospital had given me, believing this was, or at least part of the reason all of this was happening. A week passed, and to be honest, very little happened. I stayed away from the TV, read some books, had some walks, and felt a lot better of myself, happier, more content, believing fully well the morphine had had an adverse effect on me. I came back to work feeling fresh as a daisy and ready to get back to it. Suit pressed and steamed, a layer of teeth whitener, and a little sip of Irish courage to get back out there. A knocking came from my dressing room door, followed by a voice whispered yet sincere. "Hey Charles, so glad to have you back. It was fun for a short time, bust Christ those guests. It's like either talking to a dog with ADHD or a brick wall, so I'll be glad to pass the reins back to you. We are on in 15 seconds. Ah, Arla, great to hear from you, hun. No worries at all. I'm just freshening up and I'll be out in a minute. I heard Arla's footsteps clack down the hall as she went to get ready for the show. I swiveled back to my mirror and instantly turned to stone. In the mirror was the figure stood cloth fibers away from my back. I could only see from the neck down, but I knew it was him by the distinct suit he wore. The stench of death hung in the room as I could feel the presence behind me begin to gear up to say or do something. I wanted to turn round and confront my demon, but I couldn't. I just sat there as if Medusa had cursed me. You saw what I did and felt what I did, but it will never be enough, Charles. My lips quivered, trying to formulate some sort of sentence. Who the fuck are you? Chuckling through gurgled breath. You have no clue, do you? I shook my head from side to side, slow as I could. The figure began to whistle, much like a child trying to whistle for the first time, only occasionally hitting that perfect balance to make the sound. At first, I had no idea what the tune was, but then as the tune faded and the singing started, it clicked. The pieces came together and I had to try and hold back a torrent of vomit that was beginning to build. Start your day with a laugh and a chat. The breakfast show with Charles and Matt. On the last syllable of the jingle, he brought his head down into view. Despite his gray complexion, sunken eyes, and toothless grin, it was unmistakably Matt, my old co-host. I gulped as I could feel him staring a hole into my soul, expecting me to say something. Matt, long time no see, pal. What's happened to you? I died, didn't I, Charles? The words sat heavy in my soul and still ring in my ears now. You know that, though, don't you? You blocked my family when they tried to contact you about the funeral. A family who treated you like a son. A family who loved you, gone from your life at least. I stuttered. Worst of all, I knew all of this was true. It all came rushing back, and it was true. This is all you're doing, though, isn't it, Charles? What happened to me? This is on you. I was battling through tears and struggled breath. How the hell is this my fault? I didn't kill you. No, but you caused it, didn't you? Stabbed me in the back and left me for dead on a sinking ship of a show while you sat here in your cushy dressing room living on the luxury of life. You let me drown there, Charles. I'm so sorry. Sorry isn't going to fix this now. I didn't find your apologies at the bottom of a bottle or behind a wheel, so I certainly don't want them now. I broke down completely, sobbing into my jacket as I turned to look at him for the first time properly. What do you want from me, Matt, huh? I can't undo it, so what the fuck do you want? The thing that you made my family feel irrelevance. I don't get it. What do you mean? I want you to become as irrelevant as you made my family feel. You don't deserve the fame or fortune. You're a selfish arsehole and you deserve nothing. So every show up on that stage, I'll be watching. Every segment, I'll be there till the fans all lose hope and give up on you too and see you for the sniveling coward you really are. And if I don't do the shows, if I just retire and go home, then what, huh? What's the fun in that, Charles? I want the nation to see you suffer and crash out. If you try and go home to dwell and take the easy way, I'll just make your life hell there too. There's only one way to stop this, Charles. Fade into irrelevance too. Chop chop, you're on in 5, you're on in. I ran out as fast as my legs would take me. But no matter how fast I ran, this was not something I could run away from. The responses of today's show were poor, with comments saying I was losing my passion, calling me washed up, sending a torrent of hate. Matt sat and watched the whole show with that horrific grin on his face through the entire show, not breaking his gaze, clapping and shouting throughout. Yet some people are so stuck in their way of watching and tuning in, they refuse to break their routine. So for now, I'm stuck in this hell, so please, I write this as a plea and a cry for help. For the love of God, stop watching my show. I don't deserve the attention anymore. I just want to fade into obscurity, please. The sixth story has come to an end. Now it's time to knock on the door of the seventh. Don't swim in my hometown's lake. Don't even go near it. Two suns were shimmering on this particular day in June. The one in the sky, of course, and its twin beaming brightly back at it from the still surface of the lake. My small town thrived on this lake, especially during summer. It was the go-to local tourist destination within the county. Until recently, our fish population was one of the healthiest and most numerous in the contiguous United States. There was a factory nestled in the surrounding woodland that used the lake's waters as a coolant for whatever they produced. That factory employed over half of the men in the town until just 5 years ago, when it was purchased by an overseas conglomerate and forced to lay off its entire existing staff. Naturally, this move faced mass protests, but at the end of the day, there was nothing we could do. Now the factory, along with a few rows of beach houses, lay abandoned along the sandy banks. I'm sure you can tell by now that my town was past its prime. Still, we tried to hold on to our title of a landlocked Amity Island, crooked mayor and all. The day it happened, I descended on the beach in the early morning with my friends, intent on staying until sundown. By this point, it wasn't too busy, but we knew that by noon, tourists would crowd the banks like locusts. We met up in the commercial area, a zone of kiosks and picnic tables. A few families had already arrived, and small children were playing by the waterside under the watchful eye of a parent. Once we'd all shown up, our little group of mostly 12-year-olds decided that we weren't kids anymore, and that our station for the day should be where the teenagers hang out. The long stony strip that was scattered with empty beer cans and cigarette butts. That didn't necessarily mean we were too old for a little fun by the pier, however. We crowded onto the rickety dock and raced each other to jump from the abrupt end into the clear water beneath. I decided to hang back for a bit. One eye was kept on my friends doing their best drowning impression. The other was on Everly, the hottest girl in my year. She sat alone on a flat stone jutting out from the grassy hill, not too far from the edge of the lake. I caught her eye, took a deep breath, and walked over to her. "Hey," I said. "Hi," she replied. She was nursing a quickly melting soft-serve ice cream in a cone. It had mostly liquefied and was running down her arm. "Your ice cream is melting," I pointed out dumbly. "I know," answered Everly. I glanced over at the nearby ice cream truck. "Want me to buy you another one?" I asked casually. She beamed. "Thanks," she said and smiled. I met her smile with my own, then patted my pockets. "I don't have any money," I admitted. She scrunched up her cute nose and laughed. I knew I must have done something right. Before I could continue, I heard someone call Everly's name. I turned and saw a frumpy, middle-aged woman waving her over. She stood and turned to me. "See you later," she said, and dropped her ice cream on the floor. I watched her walk off and then made my way back to my friends who were only now emerging from the lake. At 13, I was the oldest and therefore the designated leader of the group. It also helped that I knew a shortcut to the beer can beach, as we'd started calling it. And so, it was me who led the gaggle of tweens away from the now bustling lakeside and into the woodland. We were all in good spirits, and the high we got from the prospect of months without school was more potent than any drug I've tried since. Like the rest of them, I was clad in shorts and a thick layer of sunblock that acted like a second skin. I can remember the childhood bickering and cries of "wuss" and the occasional pussy directed towards the kids who didn't want to take the shortcut. Despite their protests, they still all followed me. It quickly became clear that I didn't know where I was going. We were now surrounded by trees and had somehow strayed so far away from the lake's edge that we could no longer hear the water lapping at the shore. "You got us lost, man," Tyler, my snub-nosed best friend, said, throwing his arms in the air. Everyone else stopped and waited impatiently for my rebuttal. "We're like a 2-minute walk from civilization in any direction. We're not lost," I replied snarkily and started to walk with more determination. "Some shortcut," I heard one of the other boys mutter as they all gave up in their short-lived mutiny and followed me again. Soon the noise of small, gently crashing waves returned. The once thick tree line thinned out like my balding father, and I could once again see the lake laying just beyond our position. Any unfaithfulness my extended friend group had in my sense of direction had dried up. They followed me as we came across a large rock. "It's just beyond this rock," I shouted back at my followers. While I knelt and tied my shoelace, a few attempted to scale the mossy boulder in one jump. One of them, a ginger kid named Jeremy, who had a desperately small stature even for his age, managed the ascent first. As soon as he reached the top, he screamed, "Jeremy, what's wrong?" A few of us said in something near unison. On the top of the rock, Jeremy fell to his knees. I ran over to him, as did a few others. We climbed up behind him, and as soon as we reached the top, realized what he'd been screaming about. Washed up in the miniature inlet that lay behind the rocks was a human body, a corpse, a person's remains. These were the terms that tumbled through my mind as I stared slack-jawed. As the rest of the posse crowded around me, a few had the same silent reaction I did. Some screamed. Jeremy began to cry. It wasn't long before morbid curiosity possessed me. I wasn't the only one. Me and one or two others hopped down from the boulder onto the edge of the thin semicircle inlet. Everyone was freaking out now. So was I suppose. I just had a different way of expressing it. Some tried to deny what was right in front of them, claiming it was just fake. I intended to show them what it really was. As a test of my own masculinity and maturity, I picked up a long, thick stick at my feet and walked over beside the body. I admit I did think the theory that it was fake had some weight after I realized that despite looking severely decayed, it gave off no smell whatsoever. I poked and prodded it. With the help of my other stick-armed friend, we managed to move it partially onto its side. It looked vile, just putrid. There wasn't a single fly or insect around it, but despite this, its face looked like it had been feasted on. The skin was slimy and white, loose adipose that clung to the bloodied skull. Its scalp was rotting away and looking like the threadbare knees of an old pair of ripped jeans. Greasy black hair, which had mostly fallen out, fell down to its shoulders. His nose was replaced with 2 leaking holes. One socket was empty. From the other dangled a useless eyeball. He, who I assumed was a man, wore green overalls smeared in dirt and other grime that came from spending who knows how long in the lake. When I poked his cheek, yellowing ooze poured out. It was real, all right. When that realization dawned on me and the other older kids inspecting the body, did the gravity of it really sink in? I was looking at a human body, a real-life dead person. I dropped my stick and swore. I couldn't fathom it, not really. My friend standing across from me shouted to the younger children to leave, to go and get help. Help, I thought, was funny wording. I looked at the corpse at my feet and thought he was long past CPR. Then it grabbed me. Its bony hand shot out like an unfurling mantis claw. It latched onto my ankle with a vice-like grip and used me to balance itself as it tried to get up. Moans escaped its hollow mouth as I screamed, as did everyone around me. I watched my friends bolt, leaving me to kick away my assailant. Finally, I broke free of his grasp. One kick shattered his remaining teeth like a dropped bijou. It stumbled back, almost falling over, but managed to catch itself. Once it was steady, it turned and looked at me with its dangling eye. I was broken out of my fear-induced trance when it lurched towards me. I turned and ran, needlessly scaling the rock behind me when I could have just ran around it. I jumped down on the other side and ran until the pain in my ankle overwhelmed me. Once signs of life were up ahead, and a quick turnaround told me that the body hadn't followed me, I stopped and inspected the source of the agony in my leg. Wrapping around my shin was a white rash in the loose shape of a handprint. Someone called my name and my head shot up. Standing by a tree just in front of me was Tyler. Behind him, a small crowd of concerned adults were moving slowly forward. Varying levels of belief on their faces correlated to who'd been told just about the discovery of a body and who heard it had moved. Still, even the disbelievers were driven forward by parental instincts and fatherly one-upmanship. Cautiously, myself and a few other children followed the adults back towards the rock. My heart was pounding and my white rash burned like sulfur. Still, curiosity acted like an opioid as we returned to the large standing rock. I watched as a hefty, short and vest-wearing dad who already had a brutal sunburn tried to discreetly walk past the rock next to the water's edge and take a peep at the small inlet. The rest of our band watched as he crept around the corner, then screamed, stumbled backwards, and fell into the lake. His scream caused a chain reaction of similar screeching. There was a collective freeze as we all silently waited for something, anything to happen. But nothing did. No one staggered from behind rock, and more worryingly, the man didn't get up. I noticed some of the adults looking at each other, wordlessly forming a plan. I saw that plan in motion when 3 of the equally sunburned men split off from our group and walked tentatively forward. Children were being consoled around me, but I wasn't a child. Not anymore. I was 13, for Christ's sake. I decided to follow the men, a few steps behind them, of course, but it still made me feel important. 1. The taller man with, noticeably, the thickest head of hair, broke off from the pair to wander over to the man now lying face down in the shallow lake edge, calling his name reservedly as he went. I decided to follow him. He kicked off his flip-flops and took a few steps into the water, crouching down by the fallen man. I crouched too, feeling the pain in my leg flare. Looking down at my shin gave me the same nauseous feeling as gazing over the edge of an eroding cliff. I could see that where the rash had been was now soft, puffy skin that didn't look quite connected to the tissue beneath it. My own bodily worries were torn aside when the tall man screamed. His friend lurched up from the water, his skin dripping like wax. All I could hear now was people screaming. The men in the water, the 2 beachgoers behind the rock, and of course myself. I hobbled back on my bad leg as I watched the rotting man in the lake fall forward, chasing his would-be aider. At the same time, the body from the small inlet ran mangled from behind the rocks, chasing after 2 of the parents. The body's hideous shriek, I soon realized, was a plea. Kill me. Kill me, he roared, his voice sounding like he was drowning in thick mud. Despite the bolt of pain that shot through me with every step, I found that fear suppressed most of it. As the 2 living monuments to decay gained on me, I realized I wasn't escaping but running into more chaos. Finally, I burst from the tree line and into the commercial area. Before my eyes could even register the carnage in front of me, I smelled the blood. Its stench was overpowering, noxious. It covered the grass and led out in a trail over the stones, sand, and white-painted wooden dock until finally it mixed with the lake water. Staring at the anomaly that coated the lake, it dawned on me that I was wrong earlier. The shimmer I saw wasn't just the dazzling reflection of the sun, it was a spectral shine that reminded me of a gas station puddle. It was like a tamed rainbow, dull from years of abuse, was being held captive just below the gentle waves. Black helicopters flocked overhead as I gazed at the destruction this shimmer brought with it. Dozens of people wandering the bank aimlessly, letting out animalistic cries as their body rotted. I saw a young mother cry as she held her quickly putrefying child. They were all still alive by some dark miracle, suffering through every second of it. Not too far from me, staggering between the deserted park benches, was a rotund man with an inflatable zebra pool ring still around his waist. He tore at his own face in agony, which came away from the skull like some extreme case of degloving. This scene and similar was being repeated all around me. Men, women, and children all bearing the same affliction. It felt like a glimpse of hell. As I stared in debilitating disbelief, something suddenly pounced on me. I was knocked to the ground, turning onto my back as I fell. As soon as I was down, my assailant dove on top of me. It was the body from the inlet, now more of a skeleton with the bare minimum amount of muscle and nerve tissue keeping him moving. He couldn't scream, couldn't speak. His larynx had dissolved from the looks of his neck. The remnants of his face were now inches from mine and dripping a foul gunk onto me. His jawbone swung open in an attempt to communicate. As it did, my hand finally felt what it had been searching for. I swung it around, bringing the stone down on the decomposing man's head. It splintered on impact and he fell limp, slumping on top of me. With a heave, I pushed him off. His wasted body left a snail trail of flesh behind it. I didn't want to think of what was now coating my clothes. I stood and brushed bits of bone and sinew from me. Now firmly dead, the man had no bodily functions left to fight against the rot. And so his corpse, which had curled up like a dead spider, had begun to liquefy. Soon he was a puddle on the grass among a once white shirt and rubber waders. After what felt like years suspended in shock, I felt agency return when I saw Tyler being attacked by one of the rotters. Bloodied rock in hand, I began to run to his side, but stopped when I realized the decaying mass assaulting him was his mother. I stopped just a few yards away. For me, seeing someone I knew in that state was traumatizing. I couldn't fathom what it was like for Tyler. The distressed Tyler and his mother crumpled to the floor. His hands were around her putrid neck, trying to push her away. Even from where I was standing, I could see that she was crying. It was clear to me that she wasn't attacking him. Rather, she was trying to hug her son. I didn't know if Tyler had realized that yet, but I couldn't bear watching them any longer. Call me a coward, but I turned and ran. My bad leg carried me only a few steps further until I collapsed against a picnic table. I fell to my knees and crawled under the wooden shelter, curling up into a ball. Finally, I grimaced and looked at my wound. The puffy dead skin had rotten away, leaving a mass of bodily slime, yellow beads of fat and sinew. My milk-white shin bone poked proudly through the tissue. I whimpered when I saw the damage. The pain was already too much to bear, and it was only getting worse. My eyes were welded shut as I wept into my shoulder. When I opened them again, I wanted it to all be over. I wanted to be sitting bolt upright in bed, and for all this to have just been a terrible nightmare. I wanted the pain to stop. And when I felt an arm grab that back of my neck, I thought it soon would. Just not in the way I hoped. I was dragged on my back out from under the picnic table. Staring from the grass up, I saw that my attacker wasn't one of the victims of decay, but a person in a formless black hazmat suit. I heard a muffled swear come from his rectangular helmet when I assumed he noticed my wound. The long metal cylinder he held in both hands shook with indecision. I watched as he looked up from me and around. I followed his gaze and saw his co-workers swarming the wharf, torching any rotting screamers they came across with the bulky flamethrowers hanging from their suits. I looked up at the man towering above me in fright. Once again, his attention turned to me. The last thing I saw was him raising his weapon. I woke up in a hospital bed an unknowable amount of time later. As soon as I opened my eyes, my mother, who'd been sitting in the chair at the edge of my bed, sprang up and wrapped me in one of her affirming hugs, careful not to yank any of the tubes that ran in and out of me. A nurse soon appeared, beckoned by some hidden medical alarm. She first warned my mother that I was still in a fragile state. Then she began to read a set of questions from her clipboard. I answered truthfully, explaining that other than a full bladder and a dull ache in my thigh, I wasn't in any discomfort. She then handed me her clipboard and a pen, instructed me to read through the terms and sign a now broken non-disclosure agreement. Seeing no reason why I shouldn't, I of course signed my name. If I'm being completely honest, which this post has been up until now, I thought it was something to do with the patient confidentiality thing I'd heard about in a medical drama. She took the page back and smiled stiffly. My ears felt like they were filling up with wax after hearing what she said next. I looked at my mother, who began to weep. I didn't believe the nurse and swung back my blanket to triumphantly prove her wrong. My right leg had been amputated from well above the knee. The next hour was occupied with my mother and a new nurse trying to calm me down. This'll be 15 years ago this summer. I don't live in my hometown anymore. No one does, not really. It wasn't just the lake that was affected. Anyone who drank tap water in that same time frame met a similar fate to the people who'd been out swimming. I still don't fully know what happened. I have my theories, of course, but knew better than to voice them. Anytime I think about it, the black van parked across the street from my house would make me think otherwise. Until now. You see, since I started writing out my account, I've heard banging from my front door and, oh God, I think I just heard it being broken down. Please, anyone who reads this, get my story out.